The storm started long before the rain. The heavy thud of my father's boots echoed through the house like thunder, his steps pounding across the kitchen tiles. My mother's voice, venomous and sharp, cut through the air as she hovered over Eli, ready to strike with her words, her gaze cold and calculating. My son sat on the couch, his small hands gripping his drawing pad, his eyes wide and confused, filled with hurt. All he wanted was to color superheroes, to create a world where good always triumphed. But in this house, heroes didn't exist, only tyrants who ruled with blood ties. We had come here because there was nowhere else to go. My apartment lease had expired, my job let me go without warning, and the shelters were packed. The last time my parents saw me struggle, they laughed. But this time, I begged for Eli's sake, just for a roof over our heads, a bed to rest in, and a few nights to breathe. My father had cracked a smirk and opened the door, muttering, "Leeches always crawl back." My mother eyed me up and down, disgusted, as if I were filth she couldn't scrape off her shoe. "You just keep proving we were right about you," she said. Eli looked at me, worried. I smiled, telling him it was okay, but deep down I knew it wasn't. The first day passed quietly enough, just their glares, their whispers, and my mother scraping dishes for two people, as if Eli and I weren't even alive. But by evening, the insults started to grow louder. "This house smells like failure," my father grunted as I passed him in the hall. "Trash brings trash," my mother said when Eli accidentally dropped his toy. Every time I swallowed the anger, reminding myself that we had nowhere else to go, I felt a part of me die. But still, I shielded Eli with soft words, hugs, and whispered promises that this would be temporary. That night, the line finally snapped. Eli was sitting quietly on the arm of the couch, drawing again. My mother swooped in, snatching his pencil from his hands, and ripped his page in half, laughing as she tossed it aside. "Art? You think you're some kind of genius? You're just like your mother, a mistake pretending to matter." "Stop," I said sharply, stepping forward before I could think twice. My voice shook, but it carried years of suppressed anger. "He's a child. You don't talk to him like that." My mother's head whipped toward me, eyes narrowing with cold fury. "I'll say what I want," she hissed, "because you bred garbage and brought it into my house. Maybe if you'd kept your legs shut, you wouldn't be dragging this parasite around." Eli's little body trembled next to me. I crouched down, wrapping my arms around him, whispering, "You're perfect. She's lying. Don't listen." But my father's footsteps thundered in from the kitchen, his face twisted in rage. "Don't you ever talk back to your mother in my house. You don't make the rules here. You never did." "I'm just telling you not to hurt him," I said, standing my ground though my knees shook beneath me. "I let you do this to me my whole life. I won't let you do it to him." And that's when his eyes went cold. That chilling calm that signaled violence was near. He grabbed the crowbar, rusted and heavy, that leaned against the doorframe from his earlier cartwork. He lifted it like it weighed nothing and stalked toward us. Eli whimpered, clinging to my leg, and my heart pounded in my throat. "Move," my father growled, his voice low and deadly. "No," I whispered, crouching, wrapping myself around my son, shielding him with my body. From behind my father, my mother's voice cut through the tension like acid. "Let her get hit. Let her learn. That's what you get for breeding trash like yourself. You deserve it." The first blow landed on my shoulder. White, hot pain shot through me, and I bit back a scream, holding Eli tighter, whispering, "I've got you, baby. You're safe. Mommy's here." Another blow came across my back, sending me sprawling to my knees, but I refused to move, refused to let them get near Eli. My father's breath was ragged, his curses filled the room. My mother stood watching, arms crossed, a smirk on her face, like justice was being served. When the crowbar hit the floor with a clang, my body was shaking, my breath uneven, but my son was untouched. My father glared down at me, disgust in his eyes. "Get out," he snarled. "Take your brat and crawl back to whatever gutter you came from." My mother leaned in, her breath hot in my ear, her final venomous words, a twisted promise. "You'll come crawling back again. You always do. Because trash doesn't survive long without scraps." I said nothing. I gathered Eli into my arms, ignoring the fire in my body, and walked out into the rain. The night was cold, but colder still was the way Eli clung to me, his tiny sobs muffled against my neck. I kissed his hair, tears mingling with rain on my cheeks. "I swear to you," I whispered, my voice trembling but fierce, "they'll never hurt you again, and they'll never forget what they did tonight." We walked down that empty road, each step agony, but my resolve burned hotter than any pain. That night, something inside me died, the girl they had beaten down for years. In her place, something stronger was born, a woman who would make sure they regretted every strike, every word, every ounce of pain they ever poured into me. And now, my son. And this time, I wouldn't just survive. I would end the reign of terror they called parenting permanently. The days after that night felt like one long, bruised blur. Every time I shifted Eli in my arms, the ache from my father's crowbar flared up, but we survived. We drifted from cheap motels to borrowed couches, never a real home, but safer than that house of horrors. Eli stayed quiet, drawing in silence. His once bright smile had dimmed, reduced to a flicker. But every time I saw the fear in his eyes, something inside me hardened. This time, I wasn't going to run. This time, I wasn't going to hide. My parents had spent my whole life playing gods in a crumbling kingdom of fear. I had been their favorite punching bag, their daily reminder that I wasn't worthy of love. Now they had extended that cruelty to my son, a 7-year-old child who had never known hate until they poured it into his heart. I spent nights awake remembering every moment they made me beg for affection, every bruise, every insult, every time they starved me just to remind me they could. They had never feared anything, not the law, not judgment, not losing me. Their power came from believing they were untouchable. That's what I was going to destroy. I called a lawyer the next week. She specialized in child protection and domestic abuse. I handed her every photo of my injuries from that night, every hospital record from my childhood, every vile text and voicemail they had left me over the years. It wasn't just about me anymore. It was about what they had done to Eli. For the first time in my life, I wasn't asking for help to save myself. I was preparing to burn their fortress of power to the ground. The lawyer listened intently, her face darkening with each word. "We won't just stop them from hurting you again. We'll make sure they never hurt anyone else." From there, the plan came together piece by piece. Police reports were filed, not just from that night, but reopening old incidents I had buried because I was too scared to fight. Neighbors stepped forward. Teachers from my school days submitted statements. My case became a storm they couldn't silence. Weeks turned into months. My mother called one day, her voice tight with anger masquerading as concern. "Are you really doing this?" she hissed. "You think you're going to win? You'll always lose." I held the phone away for a moment, then brought it back to my ear. "This isn't just a case. It's your reckoning. You made me afraid every day of my life. You swung a crowbar at me in front of my child. That ends now." I hung up. Eli began to change as the case grew. Hope flickered back into his eyes. "Will they be gone forever, Mom?" he asked one night, his voice small. I kissed his forehead and whispered, "Not just gone. They'll never be able to hurt anyone else again. That's my promise." The first hearing date came. My parents strutted in, confident, smug, just like always. thinking they could lie, intimidate, or scream their way out of this. They didn't realize they weren't facing the broken daughter they had raised. They were facing a mother who had rebuilt herself brick by brick, fueled by the fire they had lit with every cruel word, every strike of that crowbar. The court listened. Evidence piled up too heavy for them to shove aside. Neighbors, teachers, and relatives who had once been silent now spoke the truth. Still, I knew this wasn't enough. Stripping them of their power in court wasn't enough. I wanted a final blow, something that would make sure they could never recover. That night, as Eli slept peacefully beside me for the first time in weeks, I stared at the ceiling. My mind raced back to every time they threw me out, every insult, every time they called me trash. They had clung to their home like a throne, their last symbol of power over me, and I knew what had to happen next. I wasn't just going to win, I was going to take their throne away, brick by brick, until they were left standing in the gutter exactly where they had always said I belonged. The final stage of my revenge had already formed in my mind. The court hearings dragged on. Every day, my parents' armor cracked a little more. They didn't know it yet, but their reign was over. When the verdict came, it was more than I had expected. They were barred from contacting me or Eli, and my civil suit was approved for damages. The truth had finally caught up with them. And for the first time, they had to face consequences they couldn't scream or lie their way out of. But I wasn't done. Their house, the one they had lorded over me for so long, the place they threw me out of as a child, was seized to cover their debts. Within a month, eviction notices hung on their door, a scarlet letter for all to see. I didn't go there myself, but I heard about it. My parents, once so smug, stood on their lawn, surrounded by their belongings. They had no home, no power, no family, not even each other. Their cruelty had hollowed everything around them. The day their house was locked up, I sat on my own porch with Eli, watching him draw peacefully. His hands no longer trembled. "Mom, are they gone now?" he asked quietly. I wrapped my arm around him and kissed his hair. "Yes, baby, they can't hurt us anymore, and they never will again." That night, I lay awake, not from fear, but from the calm that came with knowing it was over. I hadn't just survived my parents, I had ended their cycle of power. The people who made me beg for shelter were now the ones begging for scraps. For the first time, the nightmare didn't follow me to sleep. The only sound in my head was Eli's quiet laughter from earlier that day, and I promised myself that no matter what came next, that would be the only thing that would ever matter again.